Hello, respective viewers. I'm George from Ireland. Welcome back to my channel once again. Anyway, it's a year since Russia's illegal war of unprovoked invasion, of unprovoked aggression of Ukraine towards Ukraine began, its invasion. Of course, the war was going on for 8 years before that, but on a much more limited scale. This is at 5 a.m. Moscow time that President Putin announced his so-called special military operation with the stated objective of the denazification and the demilitarization of Ukraine. Now, this was patently imbecilic, as Russia is something approximating to a Nazi state itself, whereas Ukraine most certainly is not. Moreover, Ukraine is absolutely entitled to have a military. Virtually every country is a military. And of course, Ukraine needs a military more than most because it's beside a gigantic and hyper-aggressive neighbor, which has been carrying out acts of terrorism on Ukrainian territory for years, attempted the murder of President Yushchenko way back in 2004. Another thing is, obviously, it's just over 9 years since the Maidan massacre. About 100 unarmed Ukrainians shot dead under President Viktor Yanukovych, the pro-Moscow president who subsequently fled to Russia, who remains there to this day. So Putin's aim in 2022 was to take Kiev in just 2 days because his acolytes on Russian media had repeatedly bragged they would take the Ukrainian capital in a mere 48 hours. And indeed, 48 hours into the war, there was a communique published on numerous Russian news websites saying, that's it, we've done it. We have taken Ukraine. We've reunified Ukraine, Russia, and Belarus. That was taken down within hours because it seemed so ridiculous. So they prepared this very well, but not the military campaign so well. So Putin lied and lied and lied in the days leading up to the war. At his National Security Council meeting, he met with Patrushev, Sergei Lavrov, Mrs. Matvienko was there. I'm just trying to think who else was Bortnikov, and Ivanov, and they said that they were recognizing the Luhansk People's Republic and the Donetsk People's Republic as sovereign states. Now, Putin, when he began his invasion of Ukraine in earnest last year, he said that Russia wasn't going to take a single millimeter of Ukraine. Lie. Obviously, Russia had already stolen Crimea, and in a rigged referendum announced that Crimea had voted to join the Russian Federation and was therefore incorporated into the Russian Federation in 2014. And then, just as I predicted, later in 2022, they staged ludicrous, farcical referenda in some of the other regions, Luhansk, Donetsk, Kherson, and what's the other one? Zaporizhia. And they then said that these have been fused with Russia. And they're now changing the map and saying it's so-called extremist to show the real map, the map that even the Russian government recognized itself a year ago, the map that even the Russian Ministry of Education printed and distributed in schools. But now that's going to be a crime. So this is the topsy-turvy of Putinism. But unfortunately, it shows no sign of abating. So Russia invaded about 190,000 troops, far too small to take a country of over 600,000 square kilometers. So, I mean, I thought it was going to be more limited aim. Russia already controlled roughly 10% of Ukraine before last February. I thought they'd take, another 10 to 20% and then stop. But no, really they wanted to take the whole country, see how successful they could be. Another lie that Putin told his people, that no conscripts were sent to war. Even he acknowledged a couple of months later that conscripts had been sent to war, and so on. That there would be no draft, and there was a draft, and on and on. So lie after lie after lie, most unblushingly told. But this is visceral for him. His unacceptance of Ukrainian sovereignty is the problem. He's trying to lobotomize the Ukrainian nation, not even recognize the Ukrainian language as a language, and is actually quite different from Russian. It's closer to Polish than Russian, and so forth. And to deprive them of their national identity, he will not accept the collective individuality of Ukraine. And of course, the Ukrainians have got a lot of commonalities with Russia, as they do with Poland or Belarus or various other countries, but this is preposterous. So Russia has legally recognized Ukraine as an independent state. Every country in the world recognizes it as an independent country. It most certainly is independent. So that's it. So this is very worrying. This is hyper-aggression. The United Nations has confirmed the deaths of over 8,000 Ukrainian civilians caused by this war. So how many casualties have been military casualties? Well, most estimates that the Ukrainians have sustained something like 100,000 military casualties, which maybe a quarter to a third of those would be killed. The Russians closer to 200,000 casualties, again a quarter to a third of those killed. the rest wounded. But wounded can be very slight, it could be just one drop of blood, or it could be made quadriplegic. Obviously, some people have been captured, some people are captured and then, wounded and then captured. Or indeed, you could be wounded, recovered, wounded again, recovered, and then killed. So do you show up as a casualty thrice or just once? I don't know. So even Russia admitted to 6,000 combat deaths in this conflict. Their last update was in September 2022, but the figure is obviously so dreadful they're not admitting it. But open sources have proved that over 14,000 Russian soldiers have been killed. If you just look at the reports of funerals and so on, so those are the ones we know about. They took crematoria with them so they could cremate the corpses of their dead comrades. The families would never get them back. There's no proof the person was actually killed. They simply be reported missing because the casualties are so horrendous. And obviously, Putin is conscripting people. They're also forcing people from prison to join Wagner Group, that private military company, these mercenaries, and with minimal training and poor equipment, they're being thrown into the conflagration. And really, they are just cannon fodder. They're there to stop a bullet, to draw Ukrainian fire so they can figure out exactly where the Ukrainian positions are, and a diversion before the real attack by properly trained and professional troops elsewhere. It's a tactic they deployed in the Second World War. So they're very careless of the lives of their men. And remember, these jailbirds, they supposedly get pardoned after 6 months. Now, there's a presidential list of decrees that's published, and several of those are secret. That we haven't seen the text. Several numbers are missing. So presumably, they're quite a long list of people who have been pardoned. But obviously, Russia thinks if these guys get killed, that's good. They're solving a problem for themselves. So one of the few advantages Russia has is it's got numbers. But it's worrying because Russia's got quite a major military-industrial complex. They're ramping up military manufacturing. And what perturbs me is Western countries just not making enough shells or other ammunition to provide the Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians may run out because Ukraine can win, but it's going to cost us. We're going to have to pay more and spend less on the goodies, less on welfare, less on education, so forth, because the consequences of a Russian victory would be grave, because Ukraine would not be the last victim. Russians have already talked about invading Moldova, which they illegally occupy a bit of since 1991. They might invade Georgia, despite Georgia sheltering so many Russian refugees. They might invade Kazakhstan, and on and on. There might be no end to Putin's bloodlust. Even NATO countries might not be safe if he's not convinced of NATO resolve. Latvia, Lithuania, Estonia. Putin's followers have sometimes said that the independence of these countries is illegal. They might be invaded and so on. They've got Russian ethnic minorities. So this is very worrying. So we really need to draw a line in the sand and make the Putin regime pay a very heavy price indeed. Certainly not Russophobic. It's not bad to be Russian. It's not automatically good to be Ukrainian. I accept that good and bad people on both sides. Many of the Russian troops are just poor dupes, who are hoodwinked by this incessant Russian propaganda. I wish this war would end today. And it could end today if Putin was simply to have some common decency, but he has none. He could withdraw his troops within 24 hours, and that's it. Release all the prisoners, and war's over. Right, but anyway, I think this war's going to carry on for about a year and a half. Then Russia will be really running out of money. But he calculates that Russia will be able to sap Occidental will to sustain the Ukrainian war effort. And unfortunately, he might be correct in that presupposition. Right, thank you so much. Goodbye.